Welcome back to the Padilla Family Homestead. Today we are in the kitchen again and we are making gluten-free iced butterscotch pumpkin cookies. And these are delicious. This is something my daughter and I kind of created together. And she's over there, that's why I looked away. We kind of created this together, and we are very excited to share it with you. Being gluten-free for my daughter is important. We're really diving into all of the gluten-free baking because she misses out on a lot of this stuff in fall, or it's like super expensive. A lot of times gluten-free tastes super chalky, and we have got this one down to where it doesn't. So come on in and join us as we get going. The first thing you need to do is to preheat the oven to 400 degrees. I had it preheated to 350, which is the beep you heard, but we'll have it beep again when we hit 400 degrees. So we're going to start with mixing our wet ingredients together in one bowl, and then we will move over to our dry ingredients and combine. So we are going to need 1 large egg. My daughter already pre-cracked this for me. We will need a 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree. So I'm just going to use the 1/4 cup measuring cup. And we're going to scoop this out. I don't want a bunch of extra because it'll change the consistency of the dough. So I scrape off the top and then scrape it in. So that was a 1/4 cup and we need a 1/2 cup. So I'm going to do that one more time. Okay, so I'm going to need 3 tablespoons of coconut milk. I need 1 tablespoon molasses. I'm going to go ahead and get a different measuring spoon for that because I'm going to need the coconut milk measuring spoon again. So 1 tablespoon molasses. One teaspoon vanilla extract. Get that in there. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix that all up with a whisk. Anything I got higher up on the bowl, I will whisk in. It should be this dark pumpkin-y color. Once that's mixed in, you're going to set it aside. All right, then we'll start on our dry ingredients. And for this, we're going to use 2 cups of the 1-for-1 gluten-free all-purpose flour. And I have mine in a bag, so this is going to settle a little bit more. So what I kind of do is I take it in the bag and I fluff it. so it's not a super heavy 1 cup. I'll put that in there, so 2 cups. I'm going to do 5 tablespoons of brown sugar. This is homemade brown sugar, so it's in between light and dark, so it's whatever your preference is. And you just want to make sure it's firmly pressed. Okay, so we're gonna do 1.5 teaspoons baking powder. Now this is something, if you are not used to cooking gluten-free and you want to make sure you're cooking something for somebody else, you want to make sure that your baking powder and baking soda are both gluten-free. Sometimes there's fillers mixed in with stuff, and you just want to make sure that you're not going to have an issue with that. Okay, then we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. We're also going to do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. We're going to go with 1 tablespoon of pumpkin pie spice. I get mine in bulk. I ran out of my pumpkin pie spice that I had, so I went ahead and I grabbed some from Winco from bulk. It was much more cost effective than trying to do that little bottle again. And I will be ordering the remainder of my pumpkin pie spice from Azure Standard, where I can get all my spices in bulk for a way more affordable price. Okay, so I'm going to take my pastry blender. This is amazing. And I'm going to just mix all these dry ingredients in. Once that's all mixed in, I'm going to get butter out of the fridge. It's really important this butter is cold for this process. I also use unsalted butter for this because I want to control what salt I have in it. Baking's kind of a science. So I just use unsalted butter all the time. Okay. So I just take this butter and I cut it down long ways. I roll it, cut it down long ways again. So now I have 4 long sticks, and then I just cube it up. And you can make these cubes as big or as little as you want. Once that's cubed, I dump that in. Okay, and then I'm going to take this and kind of take the pastry blender and toss some of that flour on top of the butter cubes, just sort of coating it so it doesn't stick as much to the pastry blender. And then I push it down. And we're just going to cut it in. And you can kind of use the edge of the bowl. Okay, so we're going to finish cutting this in. The trick is you don't want this butter to melt a ton. It'll change the consistency of the dough. My daughter and I made this recipe, and I left my butter colder. She left hers a little warmer. It melted, and then we also did a different amount on the flour on the table, which I'll show you, and that changed the recipe completely, how it came out. And so too much flour is going to make it chalky tasting. It'll change the consistency if the butter is melted, and so forth. Alright, so that is good enough. Now what we're going to do is we are going to mix in the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. So we're going to take our pumpkin, and just pour it in. Then we're going to use a spatula, and we're just going to mix this in. It's going to look a lot drier, but you just keep pressing that pumpkin in to the flour. And then you'll have to switch over to doing this by hand, but you don't want to melt the butter too much. So I'm really just trying to push this in to the mixture. And at this point, we'll switch it out. And I'm going to use my hands, so make sure you have clean hands. And I'm kind of going to pick it up and fold it over and push. I did choose to use the glass bowl at this point in time because it's going to keep it colder and hopefully help that butter not melt as fast, because the glass is just colder than plastic is. So I'm going to use my hand and just knead this a few times. Alright, and it's come together. Now what we need to do is about a half a cup of butterscotch chips. Ooh, that was perfect. That's about what I had left in this container. So I'm going to pour those in, and you still see flour pieces, so it's not like totally kneaded because I wanted it just formed. And then I add these butterscotch chips in. And this is gonna be a stickier dough, so don't be surprised by that. Don't add a bunch more flour. It's gonna be a sticky dough. You really don't want gluten-free cookies to be too dry. All right, so that's ready for me to add. Now I'm gonna add about 1 to 2 tablespoons of flour to the island here, using a half a tablespoon. So that's about a tablespoon right here. I'm going to clear all this out so you guys can kind of see what's going on here without a bunch of stuff in your way. It's my dough. Okay. So I'm going to take this flour and I am going to spread it out on here. 1 tablespoon is more than enough. And then I'm going to have it lightly dusted and put the rest in a pile over here, so if I need it, I can use it. And then I'm going to take this dough And I'm only going to knead it a couple of times on the actual island. Now if you want to, because it is a stickier dough, you can go ahead and do this on parchment paper. It's just kind of a pain in the butt to do parchment paper. So the parchment paper moves around. So I kind of get flour on that bottom side, and then I'm going to recoat just gently. I'm not doing a thick coat. You can see it's a very light coat. And I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll this out now. And I'm going to roll it out to about 1/4 of an inch thick. About the thickness of your butterscotch chips. And this may kind of stick a little bit. Just be prepared for that. It's okay. If it sticks to your rolling pin, you're just gonna wipe it off and stick it to an end. You really do not want to add a lot of flour to this. It will get a chalky consistency. So now I'm going to take cookie cutters. I like doing little fall decor ones. I'm doing a leaf and a pumpkin. My daughter likes to just take the biscuit cutter and do round ones. But we're going to do a few of each of these. And I don't even bother trying to get this to come up in the cookie cutter. I am just going to push and leave, and then I'll pull the other dough off. Now the thing to keep an eye on, this is a wetter dough, and so as you're cutting, what may happen is if you have little things like this, it may get stuck in it, which is probably why my daughter likes the round one so much, because then you don't have to make sure all the pieces stay in. But we're going to go ahead and cut these out, and then we're going to put them on a parchment lined cookie sheet or a baking pan, and you are going to cook it only for 8 to 12 minutes depending on the heat in your oven. They'll kind of crack a little bit. You'll see. I'll show you what they look like. This turned out perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull off this extra, put it in a pile. I'm not going to sit there and hold it though, because I really don't want to melt this butter. So I'm going to pull it off of all these extra pieces so I can see my cutouts. Oh, darn it. Okay, let's fix that pumpkin shape. Oh. All right, I can't pull up this one in between the leaves yet. I'm gonna have to take up the leaves first. So I'm gonna go grab the pan, wash my hands, grab the pan, line the parchment paper, and get these on it. And I'm gonna use a spatula to lift them. Any of the ones that got messed up, I'm just gonna kind of push back together. These don't need a lot of room in between. Oh, it's a very deformed little pumpkin. Get some shape back. I'm going to go pop these in the oven for the 8 to 12 minutes. I'm pretty sure the 10 is going to be right on the money. Okay, so while we are waiting for those to cook, I'm going to take the last of this really fast. Add some more flour here, not a lot. And I'm kind of just going to push it down and create a few more cookies. I really don't want to overwork this. The next thing we'll do is we're going to move on to making the icing for the top of these cookies, which is delicious. Get your little stem back together there. Okay, for the last of this, I'm just going to push it into this. Which is a little thicker than the other ones, but it'll work. And then we'll push it into this. This is much thicker. Probably could have done 2 cookies with that. But that is okay. All right. So I'm going to wipe this up and we'll move on to the frosting. This rag is dry, so it makes pulling up the dough really easy. And if you get any that's stuck, I would use just a bench scraper and use that and pull it up. Okay, now it's time for our frosting. I'm just gonna make it really quick in this bowl. This is super, super easy ingredients. You're gonna do 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. Because I'm in a mason jar, I'm just using a 1/4 cup measuring cup. Now that I have powdered sugar literally everywhere. Now I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of coconut milk. And I'm going to do 3 tablespoons of pumpkin. And to get the right consistency, I'm making sure I'm really scratching off the top of this and that there's not a bunch of excess. Okay. Now I'm going to take a whisk and just gently whisk this together. I think this glaze would be really good on fall donuts, on the cookies, over a cake. Like, this glaze is very yummy. And it gets that, it hardens up when it dries, which is nice. So you can kind of see the lighter consistency. It's already getting a little thicker, but it will continue to thicken as it sits. So I just want to make sure I get all the little powdered sugar bubbles broken up, everything mixed in, and then I'm just going to let this sit until we're done with the cookies. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and come in and just put them on some parchment paper to cool. This took about 12 minutes actually. Oh, I broke my little stem off. No matter how tempting it is to eat these really warm, you want to let them cool. There's something about letting it cool that will help take away the chalkiness. If you eat it when it's hot, it may still have some of that chalkiness. Those pretty. Okay, so we're going to get our last round in. Okay, so the last of the cookies are out, and these still have to cool. We're at the point where we can ice these guys. So I'm going to go ahead and bring those over. So this has thickened in the time it's taken to finish the cookies. And it will continue to thicken the more it sits. So all I do is I take a butter knife and I kind of just fill in the center part of the cookie. And you've got a pretty full cookie. As I break off the bottom. The other option is if you don't want to do the icing, we did sprinkle just a few of them with powdered sugar before, and they were pretty good. Just lightly coat it if you have people who really don't like icing, but you want that little bit more festive look. And that's it. I hope you try this recipe. I hope you enjoy it. I love it because I can make the gluten-free and it doesn't even taste gluten-free to me. It tastes delicious, and it works for the whole family. Just one batch of cookies and everybody's happy. So these are super fun, super festive, and I hope you enjoy them. Let me know in the comments below if you make them, how they turned out for you, and what your thoughts are. We'll see you on the next video. I think I should have cooked them just a little bit longer.
Oh well. I'm so tired. Hi guys.
Yeah, these should be a little bit longer. Ready to try?
Yeah. So I'm going. Cheers.
Oh. Not chalky. Still kind of cakey.
Just a little bit. They probably should have been cooked for probably
Another 2
another
minutes.
2-3 minutes max.
Mm-hmm. So
It
good,
tastes like
guys.
fall.
So good. You should try these.
I'm happy.
We just can't eat them all. We'll see you on the next one.